If you were a kid in America in the late 1970s, you did a dozen things before lunch that would draw a knock on the door now. And what most people forget is that none of it felt reckless. It felt like an ordinary Tuesday. Number 16 on this list sent you gulping warm water from the garden hose nobody knew was leaching lead. Number 12 had boys carrying BB guns down Main Street. And number 5 on this list put you loose in the open bed of a moving pickup. Everyone was normal, and everyone has since been written into law as a thing you can no longer do. So hit subscribe and hop in the way back, because here are 30 things Gen X kids did every day that are now illegal in America. Number 30, riding loose in the station wagon way back. There was no better seat in America than the rear cargo deck of a wood-paneled wagon, facing backward, waving at the cars behind you. Federal law had required seatbelts in every new car since January of 1968, but using them stayed entirely optional. Buckling up was something other families did. As late as the early 1980s, only about 1 rider in 8 actually clicked in, so kids rolled around back there like loose groceries. That changed when New York passed the first mandatory use law in December of 1984, and within 3 years, 29 more states followed. Today, the way back is a ticket waiting to happen. A child rolling free behind the rear axle is now a violation in every state in the country. Number 29, riding on a parent's lap up front. Mom would scoot you onto her knees at the stoplight so you could pretend to steer, and nobody thought twice. The front seat had no airbag, no shoulder belt worth using, and a dashboard made of painted steel. Crash data eventually made the danger plain. A frontal collision turns a held child into a projectile, and an adult cannot hold against that kind of force. Child restraint laws close the door on the habit. Every state now requires a properly secured seat for young children, and a lap is not a seat. What once felt like the safest place in the world, pressed against a parent, is now the one spot the law forbids a small child to ride. Number 28, riding a bike with nothing on your head. Summer meant dawn to dark on a banana seat Schwinn, hair in the wind, not a scrap of foam anywhere near your skull. Helmets for kids simply did not exist in most driveways. California changed the math in 1987 when it became the first state to require helmets for the youngest riders, and a wave of states wrote their own minor helmet laws through the 1990s. By the 2020s, roughly 21 states plus dozens of cities mandated them for children. The kid who once felt the breeze on a bare scalp now rides under a buckled shell. In much of the country, a helmetless minor on a bicycle is breaking a law that did not exist when their parents were young. Number 27, playing a backyard round of lawn darts. Jarts came in a cardboard box from the hardware store, 4 weighted spikes with finned tails meant to be hurled overhand across the grass toward a plastic ring. The points were sharp enough to bury in turf, and sometimes in a person. From 1978 to 1986, lawn darts sent about 6,100 Americans to the emergency room, most of them under 15, and the game was linked to the deaths of 3 children. After a grieving father campaigned for years, the Consumer Product Safety Commission banned all sales effective December 19, 1988. The agency still tells anyone who owns a set to destroy it. The garage sale staple of 1,000 cookouts is now contraband nobody is allowed to sell. Number 26, spinning on the steel merry-go-round. Every schoolyard had one, a heavy iron disc you gripped while a bigger kid ran it up to a speed that pinned you to the rail. The platform sat high off bare dirt, and the dismount was usually a launch. Modern playground standards rewrote all of it. Today's guidelines hold spinning equipment close to the ground and cap how fast it can turn, which is why the violent old carousels have nearly vanished from public parks. The ground beneath them used to be packed clay or asphalt, exactly the surface safety codes now forbid. A piece of equipment that defined recess for a generation cannot be installed to those old specs anywhere a child plays today. Number 25, climbing the towering metal slide. The good slides rose a full story into the air, a ladder of hot aluminum that scorched the backs of your legs in July. You climbed without a rail, slid down a chute with no sides, and landed on whatever was at the bottom. Playground safety codes came for those too. Guidelines now govern slide height, sidewalls, the exit angle, and the cushioned surfacing required underneath, none of which the old giants had. A metal slide left baking in the sun could burn skin badly enough to send a child to a clinic. The skyscraper slide that ruled the park is now a design no public playground is permitted to build. Number 24. Walking to school alone in the first grade. A 6-year-old set off with a lunchbox, crossed 2 streets, and met up with the neighbor kids. No adult anywhere in sight. That was simply how you got to school. The expectation has flipped completely. Many states now set ages below which a child cannot be left unsupervised, and what counts as neglect has tightened across the country. A young child walking solo can prompt a call to authorities and, in some places, a knock from a caseworker. Parents have been investigated for letting grade schoolers roam the way every Gen X kid once did. The independent 6-year-old, house key on a shoelace, is now a scenario the law treats as a child left without proper care. Number 23. Trick-or-treating with no grown-up in sight. You and a pack of friends owned the neighborhood on Halloween night, pillowcase in hand, hitting every porch until the candy ran out and the streetlights had long been on. No parent trailed behind. The rules have hardened on 2 fronts. The same minor supervision thresholds that govern the walk to school apply after dark, and a growing list of towns now set ordinances on how late kids may roam and at what age they need an escort. Some communities cap trick-or-treating at 12 and shut it down by 8 in the evening. The unsupervised candy raid that defined the holiday is now hemmed in by curfews and age limits that simply did not exist back then. Number 22. Sticking out a thumb to catch a ride. A teenager short on bus fare just walked to the shoulder, raised a thumb, and trusted a stranger to get them across town. Whole road trips ran on the kindness of whoever pulled over. The open road closed on that habit. Hitchhiking is now restricted or outright illegal on many highways and in numerous cities, with statutes barring anyone from standing in a roadway to solicit a ride. Stand on the wrong stretch of pavement, and you can be cited before a single car slows down. The thumb that once carried kids for free across an entire state is now, in much of the country, a pose that can land them a ticket from the first passing patrol car. Number 21. Buying your own firecrackers off the counter. A kid with a few dollars walked up to the roadside stand and came away with a brick of black cats and a punk to light them. No questions asked. The 4th of July ran on whatever you could carry home. The fuse got cut on that freedom too. Federal rules already limited consumer fireworks to a fraction of the powder the old ones held, and states layered minimum age purchase laws on top, commonly setting the floor at 16 or 18. Plenty of states and cities banned the good stuff entirely. The child who once filled a paper bag with explosives at the stand now cannot legally buy a firecracker at all in much of the country. Number 20. Living with leaded paint on every windowsill. The trim, the rails, the sills a teething toddler gnawed on were coated in paint loaded with lead, prized because it held color and lasted. Nobody knew the dust it shed was poisoning kids. The science changed everything. The federal government banned lead in residential paint in 1978, and disturbing old leaded surfaces is now tightly regulated, with certified handling required for any renovation in a pre-1978 home. A child eating paint chips today triggers a public health response. The bright sill a Gen X kid teethed on, the one nobody worried about, is now classified as a hazard that landlords and contractors are legally bound to contain. Number 19. Riding a bike home after dark with no lights. You stayed out until the streetlights buzzed on, then pedaled home in the pitch black on a bike with nothing but a reflector, invisible to every car on the road. Nobody owned a headlight. The law caught up here as well. Most states now require a bicycle ridden at night to carry a front lamp visible for hundreds of feet plus a rear reflector or light, and riding without them is a citable offense. The kid coasting through the dark on pure familiarity with the route was a crash that hadn't happened yet. That unlit ride home is now a violation in nearly every state that bothers to enforce it. Number 18. Bouncing around the back seat with no booster. A 4-year-old sat on the bench seat held by a grown-up belt that crossed the throat, or by nothing at all, free to slide across the vinyl on every turn. Car seats for older kids were not a thing. Crash research forced a rewrite. Every state now requires booster seats for children who have outgrown a strapped child seat, but are too small for an adult belt, with most laws running to age 8 or a set height. An adult belt on a small child can cause severe injury in a wreck. The kid who once rode untethered, sliding to the door on a hard left, is now legally required to sit in a seat that lifts them to the belt. Number 17. Buying cigarettes for your parents at the corner store. Mom handed you $1 in a note, and the clerk slid a pack of Winstons across the counter to a 10-year-old without blinking. Running to the store for smokes was a normal errand. The counter slammed shut on that. Federal law now sets the minimum age to buy any tobacco product at 21, and retailers face penalties for selling to anyone underage, with ID checks the norm. A kid cannot legally walk out with a pack for anybody. The everyday errand that sent children home clutching cigarettes is now a transaction the law forbids on both ends. No note from mom strong enough to override it. Number 16. Gulping warm water straight from the garden hose. On a blistering afternoon, you cranked the spigot, let the hot water run a second, and drank deep from the rubber, the taste of sun-baked vinyl and all. It was the drinking fountain of every backyard in America. Nobody knew what was in that water. Testing later found that standard hoses can leach lead into whatever sits inside them, with the sun driving the levels higher, and some samples ran past the federal action limit for lead in drinking water. That is why off-the-shelf hoses now carry a do not drink label and a California Proposition 65 warning right on the tag. The free backyard fountain that quenched a whole generation is now a product the law requires to warn you against drinking from it. Number 15. Rolling loose mercury around in your palm. A fever thermometer shattered on the bathroom floor, and the silver beads that spilled out became a toy. Kids chased the droplets across the counter, watched them split and merge, even rubbed them on a dime to make it shine. Nobody treated it as a poison. The understanding shifted hard. Mercury vapor is a neurotoxin, and a single broken thermometer can contaminate a room, which is why many states now ban the sale of mercury fever thermometers and treat any spill as a hazardous material cleanup. The shimmering bead a Gen X kid pushed around the sink is now a substance the law tightly controls and in much of the country no longer lets a store sell. Number 14. Running through the fog behind the mosquito truck. On summer evenings, the spray truck rolled down the street pumping a thick white cloud, and kids sprinted into it on bikes and bare feet, vanishing into the haze for the fun of disappearing. That fog was often DDT. The reckoning came in 1972 when the Environmental Protection Agency issued its cancellation order banning nearly all uses of DDT over the harm it did to wildlife and the risk it posed to people. Municipal fogging continued with other chemicals, but tight regulation replaced the free-for-all, and no agency sprays a residential street while children play in the cloud. The pesticide haze a generation chased on a warm night is now a banned compound, and the carefree run behind the truck a scene the law made impossible. Number 13. The latchkey kid who ran the day alone. Across America, a generation came home to an empty house, a key on a shoelace tucked under the shirt, and let themselves in to an afternoon of their own making. With both parents working and no after-school program in sight, a 9-year-old fixed a snack, watched television, started homework, and looked after a younger sibling until a parent rolled in after dark. On weekends and through the long summer, the leash got even longer. Children left the house after breakfast, roamed the neighborhood for hours, settled their own disputes, and answered to no adult until hunger or nightfall brought them home. It was not seen as risky. It was seen as growing up. The legal ground beneath that childhood has shifted everywhere. A handful of states, among them Illinois, Maryland, Oregon, and Colorado, now set explicit minimum ages for leaving a child home alone, with Illinois historically among the strictest. In most of the rest, no number is written down, yet vague neglect statutes give caseworkers wide room to judge, and failing to provide adequate supervision is classified as a form of child neglect in many state codes. A young child found alone can trigger a Child Protective Services investigation, and what counts as too young to be unsupervised has crept steadily upward. Parents in recent years have faced inquiries and, in some cases, charges for letting a grade schooler walk to a park or wait at home the way nearly every latchkey kid once did without a second thought. The independent child with the key around the neck, trusted to manage a whole afternoon, is now a situation the law is far more likely to read as a child left without proper care. Number 12. Walking down Main Street with a BB gun on your shoulder. A boy carried a Daisy air rifle openly to the field at the edge of town, plinking cans, and no one called it dangerous. Federal law does not classify a BB gun as a firearm, which is exactly why the rules now come from City Hall. Most towns have ordinances that ban discharging any projectile inside city limits, and many fold air guns into their weapons codes. Cities have set age floors below which a child cannot carry or shoot an air gun without an adult present. The kid who once toted a BB gun through the neighborhood would now, in much of the country, be breaking a local ordinance the moment he pulled the trigger in town. Number 11. Bombing down the steep hill at the public park. The first real snow emptied every house on the block, and kids hauled toboggans and saucers to the biggest slope in town, racing strangers and crashing into hay bales at the bottom. The hill belonged to everyone. Liability changed who was allowed on it. After a string of costly injury lawsuits, towns and cities began posting their popular sledding hills off limits, citing insurance exposure they could no longer carry. Communities across the country have banned or heavily restricted sledding on public land, fencing off slopes that drew crowds for decades. A child sledding where a sign now forbids it is trespassing on ground a town closed to protect itself. The free winter hill that belonged to the whole neighborhood is, in a growing number of places, a slope the law has shut down. Number 10. Swimming all afternoon with no lifeguard watching. A pack of kids walked to the quarry, the creek, or the unattended town pool and swam until their lips turned blue, with not a single adult counting heads. Supervision was whoever could already do the dead man's float. The rules tightened around open and public water. Health and safety codes now require lifeguards or post explicit no swimming bans at public swim areas, and many old swimming holes have been fenced and signed against entry over drowning liability. The unguarded swim that filled 1,000 summer afternoons is now hemmed in by codes and closures that treat an empty pool deck as a hazard nobody is permitted to leave open. Number 9. Riding a mini bike down the middle of the road. A kid too young for a license fired up a gas mini bike or a homemade go-kart and tore down the street and through the neighborhood. Helmet optional, registration non-existent. It was the fastest thing on the block. The street stopped being theirs. Mini bikes and go-karts are not built to federal road equipment standards, so states classify them as off-highway vehicles and bar them from public streets with no license, plate, or insurance available to make them legal. An unlicensed minor caught riding one on a public road faces a citation in most of the country. The backyard machine that ruled the pavement is now an off-road only vehicle the law keeps off every street a Gen X kid used to race down. Number 8. Getting drilled in a hard game of dodgeball at recess. Gym class meant rubber balls thrown at full speed, bombardment and Red Rover and full contact tackle on the blacktop, and a bloody nose was just part of the morning. Nobody filed anything. School policy turned against it. Districts across the country have banned dodgeball and similar throwing and tackle games from physical education and recess, citing the risk of injury and the way the games single out weaker players. Some states and large districts pulled it from the curriculum entirely. A teacher who organized the old bombardment game today would be defying district policy. The recess war that toughened a generation is now, in many American schools, a banned activity no gym class is allowed to run. Number 7, riding in the camper shell on the back of the truck. The kids climbed under the fiberglass topper with the dog and a cooler, and the family drove for hours with the children sealed in the cargo box behind the cab. It felt like a private fort on wheels. Carbon monoxide and ejection risk rewrote that. States that regulate cargo area passengers extend those rules to covered truck beds, and safety agencies warn that a camper shell can trap exhaust fumes and offers no crash protection or restraint. The rolling clubhouse under the topper, packed with kids and gear, is now a way to travel the law treats as carrying passengers in a space never meant to hold them. Number 6, nailing a treehouse together up in the backyard oak. A kid scavenged scrap lumber and built a platform 20 feet up. No plans, no rails, no permission, sometimes straddling the line into a neighbor's yard. The tree was the only building code. Permits and liability moved in. Many municipalities now require a building permit for a treehouse above a certain height or size, enforce setback rules that keep structures off property lines, and zoning officers have ordered finished forts torn down for violating code. The freehand fort, a Gen X kid hammered together in an afternoon, is now, in plenty of towns, a structure that needs paperwork, inspection, and a setback the backyard oak rarely allows. Number 5, riding in the open bed of a moving pickup. The whole gang piled into the back of the truck, sat on the wheel wells, and rode to the lake with the wind whipping past and the road unspooling behind them. It was the best seat at any cookout. The danger is ejection, and the laws followed the bodies. Around 29 states now restrict riding in an open truck bed, many of them aimed squarely at minors. Texas and Pennsylvania bar anyone under 18, South Carolina anyone under 15, while Arkansas and New Jersey ban open bed riders of any age entirely. A child bounced from a truck bed at speed rarely survives it. The open-air ride that felt like the height of summer freedom is now, across most of the country, a violation a parent can be ticketed for. Number 4, riding the grocery cart standing up while mom shopped. A kid balanced on the lower rack or stood tall in the basket, steering with both hands as the cart rocketed down the cereal aisle, and a tip-over was just a Saturday hazard. The store said nothing. The numbers forced a change. Tens of thousands of children are hurt in shopping cart accidents every year, many from falls and tip-overs, and the injuries skew toward head trauma, which pushed safety groups and a national cart standard to call for restraints and warnings against standing or climbing. Stores now post the rules and strap toddlers into the seat. The aisle joyride that every supermarket once tolerated is now stamped with warnings, and the standing ride that thrilled a Gen X kid is exactly the behavior those labels exist to stop. Number 3, drinking soda straight from a soldered metal can. The old steel cans and the imported tins in the pantry were sealed with seams of lead solder, and a kid tipped them back without a thought, the metal leaching into whatever sat inside. Nobody read a label because there was nothing to read. The science closed that door. Lead-soldered food and beverage cans were phased out in the United States through the 1980s and banned for domestic food packaging by 1995, after studies showed the solder leached lead directly into the contents. Lead has no safe level in children. The everyday can a Gen X kid drank from is now prohibited packaging, pulled from shelves because the very seam that held it together was poisoning what was inside. Number 2, vanishing for the whole day with no way for anyone to find you. A kid rode off after breakfast with a sandwich and a quarter for the payphone, cut through the woods, and turned up at a friend's house 3 neighborhoods away, untraceable until supper. No phone, no check-in, no plan beyond be home by dark. That kind of disappearance is now read as danger. The same supervision and neglect statutes that govern leaving a child alone treat a young child roaming unsupervised and unreachable as a sign of inadequate care, and parents have faced caseworkers for letting kids range the way every Gen X child once did. A grade schooler gone all day with no way to be reached now invites a wellness check rather than a wave goodbye. The wide-open roaming that defined the era is now treated by the law as a child who slipped through the cracks. Number 1, gone from the house until the streetlights came on. The single rule of a Gen X childhood was the simplest one ever written. Be home when the lights buzz on. Between breakfast and that moment, the day belonged entirely to the kid, miles of it, unscheduled. The whole neighborhood a kingdom with no adult holding the map. That freedom is the one thing on this list that did not fall to a single statute, but to all of them at once. Supervision laws, neglect thresholds, traffic codes, and a culture of constant contact have together made the unwatched, roam-till-dark childhood nearly impossible to live legally today. A child set loose that way now risks a knock on the door for the parents who allowed it. The streetlight rule was never about the light. It was about a trust the country once placed in its children and quietly, law by law, took back. Set against the way we live now, the streetlight rule says everything. A generation rode off after breakfast and answered to no one until the lights buzzed on, and almost none of it would be legal today. The hose, the truck bed, the BB gun, the empty house with a key on a string, all of it written out of childhood law by law, all of it gone. I want to know in the comments which one you did, because the one I remember most is the bike with no lights, coasting home through the dark on a road I knew by heart.